Hi, everyone. My name is Candace Giesbrecht, and I'm the director of the Remote Performance Academy with Teamit.com. One of my favorite things to do is to spot something that's either showing up in my LinkedIn feed or maybe an article that I've read, and then ask smart people about what they think about it. And so that's what we're doing today. The thing that I spotted in my LinkedIn feed was a report from Gartner about measuring equity in candidate experience. And so equity, that's a big word, measuring, that's important. Candidate experience, we know this is such an important thing to consider, especially in a hot talent market. And so joining me today is Inji, Elnadi, and Nandor, Fodor. They are senior technical recruiters with Teamit, and that means I get to work with them a lot, and so I know how smart they are. And so you guys have had a little bit of time to just look at this report, but I'm super curious. When we look at the key findings that are in the report, the first key finding that's here says, men are more confident in their career opportunities than women, as indicated by differences in how they act on their preferences, what their candidate experience is, and what requests they make during the application process. I'm super curious, and we know now that we really shouldn't just be talking about men and women in terms of genders, but this particular finding, do you agree with that? What have you seen in terms of the differences in genders through the application process?
That I observed, we are a bit skewed toward technology, and technology in itself is a bit more male-dominant profession. So essentially, when you work with candidates in IT, software development, and all the likes, by default, they're a bit more assertive about their needs and wants. And it might be actually in favor of female candidates, actually, or anywhere around the spectrum, because it's rarer to find. So, but in terms of candidate likelihood to speak up about, let's say change the role for me and I'm okay to work with you if you can do that, I can totally see how men are a bit more assertive in that sense. And because it's purely a candidate-driven market. So having said that, there's a way better likelihood of actually having those conversations, and like actual employers are more likely to be open about changes to the role depending on how those conversations go.
Okay, Inji, what are your thoughts about the differences that you've seen in gender?
In gender, definitely, as resource managers or recruiters, we get to see all the different parts of recruiting, applicants, the interview process, the confidence level there, the offer stage, how they act. And I would say that, in technology, women tend to be more selective in applying to roles, and they tend to be less forward applying to a role compared to men. Like women will maybe apply to 20% of roles they think they can get. Men will apply to more roles. So that confidence is there from the get-go, just because of what they've been through. And then the interview stage, that's where we specialize in. We see that. I find that men tend to be more confident in approaching a role and saying, this is what I need. What do you have for me? And women are more collaborative, like, what can you offer me? What can I ask for? And it's about communication style too, it's not how smart you are that determines the confidence level or your skill set, really. It's everything around that. And in the offer stage, I see a difference in confidence levels as well. And women are more collaborative and use you as an advisor, while men are more, get me this, please. I need this on my terms. So that's how I divide it up in my mind and how I see it, the confidence.
Super interesting. And so what I'm hearing from both of you is that you agree, and in your experience, you definitely have seen some differences in behaviors of different candidates, and that there seems to be some commonalities related to gender. What's one thing that you wish that clients or that hiring managers would know as they're as they're trying to secure and create this great candidate experience?
Hiring managers of today need to know that the market is so different than 2 years ago, pre-COVID. Everything with the influx of technology, innovation, they need to know that candidates are getting multiple offers in a week, especially the candidates we go for, which are A++ candidates that are top of their game and highly sought after. So they're getting multiple offers. The market, the salary has changed. It's higher. The market is also bigger and global, and we're getting candidates from South Asia and US and all over Canada for the same role. So they need to be cognizant that there's a lot of competition, high salaries, and I would say those are the main factors for now.
Right. And if I may build on top of that, they need to be really clear on their expectations, how their selection process would look like. Because unless you're Google or Amazon, you can't afford it to yourself to have 7 meetings with a candidate who can have 3 offers in 2 weeks. So, you know, we coach them on the process, the nature of the speed element, and how important it is to find the right resource and act quickly and you know, have the actual willingness to pull the trigger on someone. So they have to be really, you know, frank with themselves. What are the criteria that you absolutely need, and what are the things that you are flexible on? They also need to be transparent about their hiring strategy, which roles are absolutely in seat and which roles are absolutely remote. Not offering remote capabilities is technically losing your strategic advantage over the hiring process these days. It used to be a privilege, today it's a norm, right? So there was definitely a mindset shift around that. And last but not least, when you talk about an HR hiring strategy or succession planning, I understand there are all sorts of different, you know, political elements to it. Sometimes you receive a quote about gender balance and equality as well. So, you know, you have to be really clear on that. If you know, you're following a skills-based hiring practice, you know, absolutely equal opportunity employer, what does that mean to you, right? Because especially in a male-dominant IT sector, sometimes it's not possible to live up to certain criteria, whether the government funds it or supports it or not. So I would just add these 3 things to the previous content, if I may.
Yeah. To the second finding, key finding that was in the report, what they found in their study was that racially diverse candidates in the US are more likely than white candidates to discontinue an application process due to 2 critical factors: diversity of the team and management style of the potential manager. What would you guys agree with that? What comes to mind as you hear that key finding?
It's sad. It's really that people are feeling this way. I have recruited globally in the US and Canada, and I find that the Canadian market we're a little more politically correct, and everyone in Canada is inherently multicultural. And the American market is a little bit different in that they're more melting pot, and they're more, you become American, a unique one individual theme. But when the hiring managers say that they want diversity, they're kind of admitting that there was no diversity previously. So at least they're acknowledging that and seeing that. And I think that candidates that are abandoning the process, probably more likely in the US, but I have heard actually this week that a candidate felt that it was, they were doing well on the interview by phone, but when it was a video chat, they could see that there was uneasiness. And I find that rare in Canada, but unfortunately I have witnessed that. And I think hiring managers are now realizing that this is got to change, and it has to change. And in some cases they have quotas to change that. So I think there's something being done at least.
And since we're talking about international backgrounds and diversity, so I think one of the major issues, admittedly, could be the language barrier. As we've built remote teams all across the Americas, including Brazil, sometimes I find hiring managers need to adjust to the fact that some people have English as their second language. So this might result in maybe a little bit slower pace of speech, right? Maybe it's grammatically correct, fluency is right, but you might need to be a little bit more patient to get the point of the person that you're talking to. So if they're planning to build an internationally diverse team, sometimes it's also looking up the culture a little bit as to, how does that culture functions, and see if you could build a culture around that in your own environment, and be, tolerant and kind of like the champion for diversity in that sense. And also the little nuances, as an immigrant to Canada, I kind of felt at first there's a power of suggestion that seems to be functioning within the English language, like, could you do that for me, or could you do that? And, coming from an Eastern European background, we usually say, do this for me, do that for me, and not just like asking if I could. Yeah, I could do it, but do you want me to do it, right? So our interpretation is different due to the way of thinking and the logic in the language. So that might be a good thing to raise awareness about. And I can totally see how some international candidates might come to different conclusion based on an interview discussion about the outcomes of that conversation.
So when you think about, because you have the opportunity to see that candidate experience playing out all the time across a number of different companies and different, locations around the world. And so what are some of the best, like if you think about the best candidate experiences that you've seen, what are some of the commonalities that you could share with people about how to create that great candidate experience that also facilitates that diverse candidates, securing that great diverse candidate?
I think the best experience for a candidate would be openness and honesty, and not being treated like a number or a technical checklist, like you have this, you have Java, you have this, that kind of thing, because hiring managers in technology just need to remember that they're human, and like communicate the process, communicate the onboarding capabilities that your company does, communicate why you love working there. Like, it's such a big draw. Like, technology is technology, but are you doing something innovative? Are you doing something exciting? Is your company helping the world? Something like that. So, and that attracts good people as well.
Certainly. And to build on top of that, it's more and more of a discussion with software developers, especially what does meaningful work mean to you, right? And some say, I have a vested interest in healthcare applications per se, because that's a domain that I want to get into, or fintech, or you name it. So essentially, it's more of that intrinsic motivator factor that aligns with the company's profile that usually is the winning formula. And the other thing is, as Inji mentioned, not making a difference between you're a developer, your number in the headcount, kind of. And I especially think that's true for not differentiating between contractors and employees. Oftentimes we work with remote clients who hire people out of Canada or Brazil as the contractors due to the nature of the legal agreement that they can't hire employees because they're not an entity or registered entity in those countries, so they have to hire remote contractors. But they treat them the same way, right? Essentially, it goes a long way to remember birthdays, still involve them in the culture, sending those cutesy gifts. Sometimes we see clients have a whole program around that, right? So definitely not feeling differentiated just because you're a remote, hired gun, so to speak. And that just really ties into the fact that at the end of the day, you're a human individual. You like to avoid uncertainties. And I think Inji touched based on the onboarding and the significance of onboarding as well. As a remote resource, not sure how many companies actually build a strategy around that, or a buddy program, or have a fully fledged onboarding package from A to Z, who to contact if you have any questions, because you can totally feel left alone just working from home from your computer, and you don't even talk with the rest of the people unless you have a directory of contacts, right? And some companies, let's just face it, they don't even have an org structure or chart that they could turn to. So yeah, having such a package definitely is an outstanding candidate experience from an onboarding standpoint.
Awesome. Well, any parting words when you think about how just what clients can do to provide a great candidate experience?
Just treat even technical people as humans. They're not machines. None of us are. And creating that inviting, innovative, a lot of opportunity, growth within the workplace, and you have to be even more communicative and more inclusive when you're distributed, because you're bringing people back to center. Mm-hmm. So that would help a lot.
Sure. And I would say it's really hard to treat everybody equal and not overcompensate or undercompensate for certain situations. I think immigrants, especially moving to different countries, they know they wanted a change, so they're there to learn the culture. You don't have to feel like you're walking your eggshells around them, right? Sometimes I not get a culture reference as a joke, but if I research it, I get it afterwards, right? So essentially, I feel like that's just part of the journey for anybody diverse coming from a different country, relocating to an English-speaking country. They just want to be part of the team, so you don't want to make them feel like that they're standing out just because they're from somewhere else.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks so much, Inji and Nandor, for your time. And I think we'll wrap it up at this standpoint. If anybody has any questions about how to help with remote onboarding, how to find great talent, how to create a great candidate experience, that's something that we do. And we do it all day long, every day. So thanks, everybody. Stay safe, and hopefully we'll be in touch soon.